All right, welcome to Raw Recovery. One take. All right, everybody. I got Alexander here.
Well,
He's volunteered to be the first one here with the little special I'm doing called One Take. As the name implies, this will all be one take. So yeah, let's give it our best shot. All right, Alexander. So tell me a little bit about where you're from.
Colorado. I grew up really all around the Denver metro area. You know, bounced all throughout a bunch of different high schools, but really just Colorado. I've lived in Atlanta too, stuff like that. But yeah.
All right, cool, man. So you were born in Denver, or
Yeah, I was born in Denver. Yeah.
what hospital were you born in?
I have no idea.
Somewhere in Denver.
Yeah,
Denver
somewhere
Metro?
in Denver. Yeah.
Cool.
I
All
have no
right.
clue what hospital though.
Right on. And I forgot to ask, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Just ate some lunch. You know what I mean? I went to church earlier this morning. It's been a really good day. How's your day?
My day's good, man. My day's really good.
Nice.
I've had the pleasure of knowing you for a while. It's been pretty awesome, man.
Thank you. Likewise.
So what was it like growing up, family and whatnot?
It wasn't, the worst thing in the world. My parents worked a lot, to put food on the table. Both my parents were addicts. Crack and alcohol, lots of it. I grew up, my dad was abusive to my mom. First memories I had was my, dad beating my mom, stuff like that. Lots of violence in the household, lots of drugs. So I started seeing it at a young age, but my parents did work hard to put food on the table, you know what I mean, and to make sure that we weren't hungry. And, they're hustlers, they did whatever they did, whatever they could to support us. There was a point where my mom, when she was a single mother, she was working 3 jobs to support us, yeah, so it wasn't a horrible childhood, you know what I mean, but it did have its times where it was rough.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, with that being said, growing up, are your parents still together?
No, my parents divorced in 2013.
Okay.
I think 2013. My mom is now sober. She's doing very well. She's remarried, happily. My dad passed away in 2018.
Damn, sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you kind of said that drugs and alcohol were kind of a big part of your childhood growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say between the ages of 5 and 12. You said you were how old when your parents got divorced?
I think I was 11.
So you were 11.
I think so, yeah.
So you were 11. So what did that look like? Were you bouncing back and forth from one house to the other?
Not at first. At first it was pretty nasty. My dad was homeless. My mom was in the house, and they're fighting all the time. He would sneak in when she was at work to take showers and whatnot. We was chilling, you know what I mean? Me personally, I didn't really care what was going on. I really didn't care they were getting divorced. I didn't care. I was already, getting in trouble, doing my own thing out on the streets, getting in trouble at school. I really didn't care. I was getting in fights with kids in the neighborhood. Already doing my thing by that time. My brother and my sister, however, were very affected by it, I guess you could say. But I didn't really care for it too much, and at first it was only in my mom's place, and that's where we were. Eventually my dad did wander off and do his own thing. He ended up in rehab, and then we didn't see him for a long time because he was out doing his thing with drugs and alcohol. So that's when I was with my mom, and she was working 3 jobs because my dad was nowhere to be found, and he wasn't paying child support or nothing like that.
Gotcha. So you talk about maybe somewhat disassociating from emotions towards your parents' divorce and what was going on. What do you think played into that? Was it your age? Was there a certain age when you realized like something's going on here, and you had resentment, or was there anything in between feeling how your parents were to the disassociative feeling you had when they got divorced?
I think at the time, I just thought it was normal, I guess. I remember times when I was younger, I'd go to my friend's house, different friends from school and whatnot, and their household was completely different than mine. Completely different. And then I realized it's not normal to be living the way that I was, my household the way it was. It wasn't normal. So I think that at the time that it was going on, I thought all the crazy stuff was normal. I think that my brother and my sister knew it wasn't normal. That's why they were affected by it. But me seeing that so much that I really wasn't. I didn't care too much. You know, a lot of times my brother and my sister would go to my grandparents, and I would stay home, and I would see everything that was going on. So I think it was just normal to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So when you were going to elementary school, is that when you started getting in trouble?
Yeah, yeah.
What grade did that? Well, like ballpark estimate? Around what grade do you think that was?
I don't remember to be. I want to say around third grade. I think around there. I was getting in trouble my whole life pretty much. But really, it started getting bad around third grade. I remember, being in way younger grades than that, and I would be huffing glue, stuff like that, because I was so hungry. I had no food. I was just hungry, and I remember sitting in class huffing glue because I heard that it would get you high, and I thought if I get high, I won't eat because that's what I see. You know what I mean? So that's what I thought. I remember doing that, but I wasn't getting in trouble. But I think around third grade is when I started. Fighting, getting in trouble and whatnot.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty young, man. So it sounds like you realized, at some point you must have realized that your parents were getting high for a reason, and you must have figured out in your head what that reason was to take away from the negativity going on in your life at such a young age. Wow, that's wild, man. All right, so that's looking like through fifth grade. When sixth grade came around, here in Colorado, that's when we go to middle school. At least that's when I did, sixth through eighth. In sixth through eighth grade, what did that look like?
Running with the wrong people for sure. That's when I started smoking weed. I started drinking. I was doing acid. Running around with the wrong people. Around there is where I got my first gun. And from then on out, it was downhill from there. You know what I mean? I was doing drugs. I wasn't, going to school as much as I should be. I was getting in trouble a lot more. I got kicked out of sixth grade. I was kicked out of my school. That was still elementary school for me. I was still in elementary school in sixth grade.
Okay.
Yeah. Got kicked out. Went to seventh grade. Got kicked out of there. And I was walking around with guns, gang banging, thinking that I was, tough and whatnot. And soon, instead of hanging out with the wrong people, I became the wrong people. I know I was already in county court. I was already, going in and out of juvie. And at eighth grade, I was also kicked out. I was in an alternative school up in Golden, Colorado. And I was also kicked out of there. So by the time I was in eighth grade, I was already kicked out of multiple schools.
Wow, so by the time you were in seventh grade, at that point you had already been affiliated with gangs. And at that point, what kind of substance were you using? Were you smoking marijuana and
smoking marijuana, drinking alcohol, I was dabbling with cocaine, lots of acid. That's really it.
Wow, man, yeah. So, by, for lack of a better term, normie stance. That's you were already into hard drugs though.
Yeah, I was.
By seventh grade.
Yeah,
Wow.
definitely. And I was drinking excessively.
And
you know what I mean? I was running around drinking like a fucking grown man.
Really?
And yeah, I was.
Multiple times a day.
Oh yeah. We were all over the town. You know what I mean? High speed chases, just running amok. Thought we were untouchable because we were young.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I was hanging out with a lot older crowd. Never hung out with people my own age. I was always hanging out with older people, older crowd.
Wow, man, that's wild. So with that being said, so in seventh grade, with your parents being divorced, was there any discipline in your household as far as like you would think of, discipline wise, like mom and dad telling you what you would and what you can't do, or
yeah, I mean, at the time my dad wasn't around, so I didn't, you know what I mean? When he wasn't around, I was with my mom. She was working so much that there was only so much that she could do. You know what I mean? She'd yell at me, tell me to do this, and then she got to go to work right away. And so leave. You know what I mean? I wouldn't listen to what because she's at work all the time. And God bless her. You know, she was a good lady. She was doing what she could at the time, and so yes, but no. After a while, she did lose. You know, she stopped trying because I was just so out of control.
Yeah, that's understandable. Would you say not having your pops around contributed to kind of the way you were acting and what you were doing?
Definitely,
Definitely.
definitely, because I saw what he was doing. On social media and running around with different girls,
Interesting.
posting pictures with guns, all this stuff, and I was like, okay,
Wow.
like, you know,
Hey, I'm glad you brought that up, Alexander. So social media. This is going to kind of dive into what I kind of wanted to touch on. So we're still looking at middle school era. What type of influence? You said you had your dad. You were seeing your dad on social media, and he was posting pictures of guns and hanging out, just running around. Interesting. I didn't even take that into consideration. Yeah, that's definitely a part of the generation. So Facebook. So when you were in 7th, 8th grade, Facebook was already full blown for you.
Yeah.
How old were you when you first made Facebook?
fifth, 6th grade.
5th or 6th grade.
I think, yeah.
And you were friends with your dad on there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. Wow. Interesting. Okay. With that being said, what kind of music and stuff were you into at that time?
Rappers. King Lil G.
Okay.
Is his name from Los Angeles.
Okay.
I was listening to him a lot. Kodak Black.
Yeah.
You know. That's really it. I wasn't really listening to a whole lot of music at that time.
Yeah. You're just starting to kind of dive into that.
Yeah. I had a little flip phone, so I couldn't really.
Right.
You know what I mean?
King Lil G.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I guess Kodak. As far as I know, I have heard King Lil G. Kodak. It's almost considered trap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So into that.
And music did have a big influence on the way I was acting. Because I wanted to be like these guys in these music videos.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, I completely can relate and agree. All right, man. So let's move on a little bit here. So high school was high school a thing for you? Were you in? Did you go to high school?
I did for a very, very short period of time.
Yeah.
By that time, when I wasn't going to class. You know what I mean? I dropped out. Everybody that I was hanging out with was co-signing my shit. You know what I mean? Don't go to school. Rock with us. By that time, I was into all kinds of drugs, mostly cocaine. I was selling drugs also, and just rocking it with my big homie Six, rest in peace, and just running amok. High school wasn't. At the time, high school wasn't. I didn't have no interest in it. I hated sitting in class, so.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I didn't really attend it.
Sure, absolutely. I completely can also relate to that. So by 9th grade, you weren't just doing drugs; you were selling drugs.
Yes. Yeah.
Did that put you in any dangerous situations?
Yeah.
Especially being from Denver area.
Yeah. There was times where I was shot at, beaten up really bad, and it was also putting where I was living. My mom's house in danger as well. And by this time around, my dad had came back in my life, and I was kind of back and forth between my mom's house and his house, and I preferred being at his house because it was more, I had more freedom, so I was mostly over there. I did lose contact with my mom for about, I want to say a year or two at this point. For a little bit, I just wasn't talking to her because she started to get sober. She found this man and she wanted to get sober with him, and I didn't like that because I wanted to keep on doing what I was doing, so I moved in with my dad, and I was thugging over at his house.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did he co-sign? Like you said, you used the word co-sign. Did he co-sign as well?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and you don't have to answer this question, but did you use with your folks?
I did.
All right.
I did.
Both?
Yeah. Not my mom.
But with your
folks? With my dad definitely. Not my mom.
Yeah. Yeah, don't feel bad, dude. So I did too.
Yeah.
All right. Just so I'm bad with ages and grades. So 9th grade, you're looking at what, 15, 16?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, around there.
by 15 or 16, being a freshman in high school, cocaine, gang affiliation, drug dealing, and putting your family's lives in danger. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, man, that's something, man. What was the demographics? What I'm trying to think of. Yeah, what were the demographics like in the neighborhood slash school where you grew up? Was it was it were there a lot of gangs? Were there a lot of jocks, or was there a mix of everything, or was there more one than the other?
I mean, really, I bounced around all over. So we moved a lot.
Okay.
So we moved a ton. You know what I
Throughout
mean?
high school and middle school.
Yeah, my whole life really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I never really, belonged to a certain stereotype of high school jocks, nothing like that. But, just really gangbanging. I hung out, just being the bad kids. You know what I mean? Areas weren't super rough at all. You know what I mean? We grew up in, decent areas. I was around decent areas, but I would slowly make my way, you know what I mean, to the hood and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Okay, so right on. Thanks for sharing that with me. All right. So did you leave high school in the ninth grade?
Yeah.
Okay, so by the time, let's just say ninth grade year was over with, you were out of high school.
Yep.
Okay, and you were living at your dad's.
I was living at my dad's house. Yeah.
How long did that last?
A few years. I think, you know what I mean. We had I was living in the basement of his house, and a few years, I believe, before he ended up passing away.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that, brother. So your dad ended up passing away.
Yeah.
Bummer, man. Would you say that was drugs and alcohol related?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. His lifestyle he couldn't keep up with it. You know, he was 42 years old.
Wow.
Was beginning to be overweight, well overweight, and it just all caught up with him. You know, I was in the basement doing drugs. You know, people were, pretty much living there that I didn't even know in the basement. The basement was full of drugs. You know, needles, everything. It was basically a trap house.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I had guns at that time. I was living crazy. Mental hospitals, jails.
Mental hospitals and jail by that point already too, huh?
Yeah, and I was only really drinking and smoking weed, man.
Really?
And yeah, doing coke and stuff like that as well. But it wasn't. It was more of my lifestyle.
Right.
At that time, rather than just the drugs.
So I know weed, marijuana, a lot of the time is looked at as not so addictive, I suppose, by the eyes of society. As far as the alcohol went, consider you weren't on a whole lot of other stuff, and the cocaine. Would you say you were mentally or physically addicted to any of those chemicals at that point?
Alcohol, yeah.
Alcohol.
I didn't really realize it though.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm still younger. Everybody around me is drinking.
Sure.
And it's like it was still normal to me. I knew nothing about AA. I knew nothing about alcoholism. You know, though I grew up around drug addicts and alcoholics, I knew nothing about it because it was so normalized to me.
Right.
And I was doing my thing. I didn't see no problem with it. I was doing my thing. That's how life was.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
So you were kind of oblivious to the fact that you could become physically and mentally addicted.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I completely understand that. So, just real quick, I wanted to touch back on the passing of your father. Were you home when he passed away?
I was. I woke up around like 3 o'clock in the evening. Went upstairs, took a shower, went back downstairs, and I was kicking it and whatnot. And my stepmom, Bailey, at the time, calls me up. He's like, "Hey, your dad's not waking up." I go up there and I walk in the room, and it looks like he was sleeping. I grab his arm, and it was ice cold. And I instantly knew that he was dead. But we're doing CPR. I was doing CPR. I was checking his eyes. He was dead probably an hour before we found him.
Sorry to hear that, brother. That's a hard one.
Yeah, it was rough. And right after that, I went downstairs and started sniffing coke, popping pills. I was popping a lot of pills at the time.
Yeah.
Before the police even got there, I was already
Killing the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's what you know, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So, all right. Wow. Sorry to hear that, man. So let's skip forward a little bit. So after that happened, where did you go after that?
I ended up moving into my mom's house.
Okay.
Far south, Aurora, in a really nice area, and I wasn't used to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was over there, and my mom was in a sober household. Not a sober living, but her and her husband sober.
Sobered up.
You know what I mean? And I can, you know what I mean? It was very strict, and I was coming from somewhere where nothing mattered or anything like that. House was trashed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it was night and day.
Right.
You know?
I can imagine. Yeah, they had some rules because it wasn't just your sobriety at that point; it was also theirs.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
So at that point, like we talked about, you were already involved with gangs, selling drugs, using drugs, quite a bit of trauma, in my opinion. How was that for your mom? I imagine. Well, how'd that go for her? And you being there with you said your stepdad at that point.
Yeah.
How did that?
It was hell for them. I put them through the ringer. You know what I mean? I went over to my mom's house with warrants all over the state. And I remember one time she took me to court in 3 different counties in one day. Because I don't know how, but my court just lined up on one day.
Yeah.
So, you know, all these court fines, all this, you know, going to visit me in jail, finding guns in her house, calling the police on me, locking me up. You know what I mean? I would disable they had alarms in their house on the windows and doors, and I'd disable it so I could sneak out. All kinds of stuff, you know what I mean? Getting drunk and on drugs over there, I put them through a lot being over there, you know what I mean?
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not alone there either, man. So you're going through jail at that point, so on and so forth. Were you still mainly just messing around with alcohol, cocaine, weed, pills?
Yeah. Lots of cocaine.
Oxycontins?
Xanax.
Xanax.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
okay.
was my thing, yeah.
Xanax, highly addictive.
Yeah.
Addictive for anyone. Okay.
Yeah. I was waking up in hospitals a lot. They'd have to call around and see what I wouldn't come home. They'd call around and see what jail I'm at, what juvenile detention center, what hospitals. Eventually, when they find me,
Yeah.
there was times I wake up handcuffed to the bed with my mom sitting next to me and security at the door. You know, my face is busted up, all crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I've
You
heard
know
some
what I mean?
stories that Xanax.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. So I kind of got off topic. So what age would you say approximately like that was around?
16.
That was around 16.
Yeah.
Like 16.
Yes, yeah.
So at 16, and your pops passed away when you were 15?
16.
16.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was still within kind of the same
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. All right
So-
around the same time.
So would you say you got worse after your dad passed away?
Yes, I was already spun out. I was already losing my mind. But
Spun out.
Just my mindset was crazy. I was in and out of the mental hospitals. You know, very suicidal. You know what I mean?
Were you
Before he
using
died,
meth?
I was not using meth.
No
or anything.
meth.
Nope.
You just weren't mentally
Just-
right. Trauma.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Sure.
you know, just the things that I see on the streets and whatnot at that time. You know what I mean? And,
Mm-hmm. Violence?
Yeah. And when he died, I really just spun out of control, like really, really bad. My life was already pretty fucked up before then, but after he died, it went downhill even faster.
Yeah, I can imagine. So everything that came with gangs, inner cities, drug dealing. We don't have to go through story by story, but just so everyone can imagine the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So it's violence.
I was doing it all, man. I was, you know what I mean? I didn't give a fuck.
Right.
I didn't care about anyone,
Right.
not even myself.
Yeah,
You know?
that's scary times, man. I'm sure everyone was worried about you. So things were pretty hellish at your mom's. I'm sure for her as well. At 16, so where did you go from there?
When I was 17 years old, I ended up joining an outpatient rehab.
Cool.
Straight out of jail. Had this big old ankle bracelet on. They said, hey, if you want to get out of jail, you need to join outpatient. And I had some inheritance money from when my dad passed away. I didn't have access to it, but I had some inheritance money. The outpatient was like $10,000. So we used that money so I could join the outpatient program called Cornerstone in Centennial, Colorado. And that was the first time in my life that I have I tried out sobriety. I saw what sobriety had to offer, you know.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Okay, that's a perfect transition because that, as I'm sure we've talked about, here with us at Raw Recovery, a big thing of what we are talking about is recovery and what has worked and what hasn't worked.
Yes.
So this works out perfectly. So you were 17 years old, and you went to treatment for your first time.
Yes.
All right, man. So tell me a little bit about what it was like there.
It's a young adults enthusiastic sobriety program. So it's from ages 13 or 15 to 28, and it's enthusiastic sobriety. So it's, you do all kinds of fun things. There's outpatient. It's really cool. It was a great program for me. I was in it for about 2 months, and I ended up putting a gun in my mouth when I was all messed up on alcohol and whatnot. Trying to kill myself. Didn't go through with it, obviously, and then I went out to Atlanta for a program out there.
So after the 60 days you spent at Cornerstone, then you went to Atlanta. Then you were contemplating suicide.
Yeah. Because I wasn't working a program,
And you were sober. Sorry, you were sober. Okay.
Yeah, and I wasn't working a program. I didn't know how to. I didn't care to. And then one day it all caught up to me, and I was, I got drunk, and then I was like, for the first time in my life, I felt guilty about using. For the first time in my entire life. My whole life using was just the best thing that ever happened to me. That feeling of feeling nothing, floating practically.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I feel bad for what I was doing, and everything I thought I knew was just out the window, and it.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I can relate. So after the 60 days in the program, did you go home or were you in the program?
I was an outpatient, and
At the Cornerstone?
Yeah. Okay. And because of what happened, I ended up going to a treatment sister program called Insight in Atlanta, Georgia, and that was an inpatient program.
Okay. I apologize. So Cornerstone was outpatient.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, okay. So you were in outpatient at Cornerstone at 17, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. You got out after 60 days, and during that 60 days, you kind of felt, and I'm in recovery as well, so I use recovery terms, almost like a dry drunk.
Yeah. White knuckling.
Yeah. Exactly. You were hating life, and you ended up having some drinks, and it caught up to you, almost like you were pulled like a rubber band, huh?
Yeah.
Then when you had that alcohol, it just snapped. I can
exactly.
Absolutely. Okay. So then, yeah, those suicidal thoughts, man. That's a rough one to deal with. I've been there too. I can completely relate. And I'm glad you're here with us today. Anyhow, all right. So we'll move forward. I'm sure dealing with, because you were sober up until you got to that 60-day mark. So really, your brain was still recovering. I'm not a doctor or anything, but just from experience. So you snapped like a rubber band. So then you realized you needed to go to inpatient, and you moved to Atlanta.
Yes.
All right, I'll let you take over. So you're in Atlanta at their sister program called
Insight.
Yes.
Sir.
All right, so tell us a little bit about Insight.
Insight, it's a house. It's called the Step 2 program, part of Insight, and it's a house in Dawsonville, Georgia, north of Atlanta, and it's just a house in the middle of nowhere, man. And this was right when COVID happened. Right, so I'm freshly 18.
Okay, that was, what year was it? 2020?
2020.
2020. Cool.
Yes.
I'm really bad with timelines.
March 2020.
Okay,
I believe
cool.
is when COVID hit the fan.
Okay.
Because it was right after I turned 18. I turned 18 in February, and then I went right after. And yeah, right when COVID happened, so I didn't even know COVID was really popping off the way it was, you know, because I was in this house, I was an inpatient. Everything was closed down, we couldn't leave. But I used that opportunity to get close with everybody that was in the house with me.
Cool.
Lots of good people in the house at the time. Like I said, we couldn't go out and do things, so we got really, really, really close. And I was sober for all of it. I wasn't messing around. I was working a program somewhat, and that's when I realized what sobriety really had to offer, and I enjoyed it.
Cool. Nice. And you said you were working a program, kinda.
Yeah,
And it was inpatient. So what did that? I've never personally been to an inpatient. What does it consist of? Structured days? Like what would one day say look like for you there in Georgia at Cornerstone?
So we'd wake up.
Excuse me, Inside. Sorry.
We wake up. We go to the building. We do outpatient there for like 4 hours, I think, and then we drive back to the house, and then we stay there at the house until the next day, and then it's just like repeat.
So in inpatient, you were only doing one group a day?
Yes.
And it was outside of the house?
And it was outside of the house.
Was it a DBT group, or was it a...
It was just an outpatient group, just like a therapy session.
Really?
You know
Group therapy?
Yeah, and it was during COVID, so there wasn't... It's hard, it was just weird. And it was a lot different. There's no places open, so we're going back and forth.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow, that had been kind of something else.
It was different. It was really different, but it was a shitty situation, but it was one of the best times I've had in my life.
Cool.
Because I was so connected with these people that
So
I've never met before.
Community was huge for you.
Oh, amazingly huge.
Cool.
I thought I was going to be sober forever and just love life forever.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, man, you get a taste of that, and it definitely feels good, right?
Definitely.
So you were there, and how was Georgia anyhow?
It was amazing.
Cool.
It was amazing. That's my favorite state out of all states. It's beautiful out there. It's a good place.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you were at Insight up until, and you said this was around March 2020. So what were you? Were you still 17 at this time, or were you?
I was 18.
So at this point you were 18. Yeah. Interesting. Cool. So that kind of, so now you're, I mean, like I said, from the eyes of society, you're a living adult.
Yeah.
So from 18, and you were there for, did I just ask you were there for how long?
60 days.
You were there for 6 days, inpatient for 60 days. So you liked it there. Did the program change at all? Did they talk anything about when you left, like a plan? Did you have any sort of plan for when you left?
No,
so
I
at
came
that point,
straight back to Colorado.
So you're at, I don't mean to laugh, but just to put a timeline on this. So you were at dad's, mom's treatment, inpatient treatment, and at that point you became an adult, and you came back to Colorado with no plan.
No plan.
All right, and I'm not saying that to make it sound like your fault.
No.
So you're now a legal adult, and you get done with everything happy-go-lucky in Georgia, and you come back to Colorado.
Yeah.
So where did you go?
My mom let me stay over.
Okay.
And within 4 days, she kicked me out because I was drunk and acting a fool.
4 days.
Yeah, 4 days.
That's common, man.
Yeah.
It's more common than I'd like to believe.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, yeah.
So in 4 days, you were out on the streets.
Yeah.
And was this the first time that you've been on the street?
No. I dealt with that before when I was younger, from time to time.
Sure.
Mostly my fault, you know what I mean? I'd get into it with my dad or something like that.
Sure.
Like,
And you could.
Yeah, and I'd leave. I'd be like, alright, whatever. And I wouldn't have nowhere to go, so I'd sleep wherever. So
this time around, you're 18 and there's no legal obligation, at all. Would just kind of for myself and for anyone watching, in a lot of times people see in society people living in the streets. A lot of people instantaneously think Skid Row. We're from Colorado. We think downtown Denver. Would you consider, with this time you go on the streets, was that what it was looking like for you?
No.
Okay, so you still kind of were pulling some things together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was I was still a part of. So when I came out here, I was part of the outpatient group again.
Okay.
So I still had some support over there. So eventually, I get into sober living, and I get sober.
From
Alcohol, cocaine, and acid, and at this point, I wasn't even smoking weed.
Okay, this is just for the
Yeah.
documentary person.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I got sober. I was sober for I think 3-4 months.
And you were in the sober living.
I was in the sober living. Yeah.
Cool. So you had your community again.
I did.
Did you like the people you were in sober living with?
Man, I loved them. I was doing really good. I graduated the outpatient program. I was now part of like the actual program.
Nice.
Because in the program there's outpatient, and then you graduate outpatient, and you're still in the group. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had a car. I had a job.
Nice.
You know?
Were you still seeing the people you were getting high with in the past?
No, I was in contact with them though.
Yeah,
I
but you weren't
refused to
hanging
delete their
around.
numbers. No. I refused to delete their numbers because they're my boys. You know what I mean? They were there for me when nobody else was.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't blame you for that at all. Okay. And then you were in sober living house and things were going good. So just considering where we're at today, when did things take a turn from sober living on? And how did it take a turn? If there's anything that happened in between.
I've had a girlfriend. I got with her. And me and her were sober together. We were doing really good, and it was the best time of my life. You know what I mean? It was awesome. I had this really cool girlfriend. She's sober. I'm sober. We're like role models in the group. Everything's really good.
Role models in your friend group?
In the program that we were in. And then one day I said, when we graduate the program, we should get drunk together. She's like, all right, cool, I'm down. And then the next day, I'm like, man, I really want to get drunk. We should do it sooner. She's like, oh, I'm down. She said, when? I said, tomorrow. And we started using together. While I was in the sober living still.
While you were in sober living?
Yeah.
Slippery slope with that alcohol, isn't it? Whew. Yeah. So you guys started drinking while you were in sober living. How did you get away with that?
So where I was at, we weren't drug tested. Yeah.
Convenient at a sober living home.
Very convenient.
I'm surprised everybody there was sober.
So
that you know of.
There was a dude sleeping on the couch that was shooting up dope. You know what I mean? A homeless guy. You know what I mean? Just shooting up dope, and nobody cared. I would hang out with this guy, just drinking, snorting dope.
Was it like that the whole time you were there, even when you were doing good? They weren't having you do drug tests or
the whole time I was there, but eventually I fell off and I was still there. Yeah. And then I got my own apartment.
Interesting. So just out of pure curiosity, do you think you falling off, did that play into any, not saying you're to blame or anything, but did that play into anybody else falling off the bandwagon? I mean, or
just me and my girlfriend
and your homeless friend on the couch.
Yeah, he was kind of just a bystander.
Sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so but you were still employed.
I was still employed, and I was still saving up money.
And
so I thought I was good.
Right.
Drinking very excessively.
Did you get kicked out of sober living?
No, they all knew I was drinking too. Every time I'd be in my room all drunk, they'd open the door. Hey, are you good? Because I'd be singing or whatever. Yeah. And then open the door and they see a bottle sitting right there. I'm good. Leave me alone. They close the door. Leave me alone. Then I moved out and I got my own apartment with my girlfriend.
Okay, so are you still in Denver metro area?
Yes, we're in South Denver right now.
South Denver.
Yeah.
So you moved out with your girlfriend in South Denver. And I'm assuming you didn't just stop drinking after you left the not sober house.
No, we started doing lots of cocaine.
Cocaine.
Yeah.
So cocaine, cocaine entered back into the picture.
Yeah. We could be as loud as we want. Then I started kicking it with all my own homies.
Then you went back to, so cocaine came back to the picture. Girlfriend, drinking, cocaine. Then back to your old friends. Back to actually kicking it.
Yeah, they come over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm sure having your own place attributed to that. Interesting. So, all right. So, let's keep going then. So, what happened with that?
Eventually, my girlfriend at the time started going back to. We were still in the program too at this point. We were still in the group. We weren't an outpatient, but we were still in the program. And eventually, she would go to the group. She'd go to meetings, stuff like that. She was still hanging out. I would never show up, and I remember one day I was there, my homies was over, doing coke, drinking. You know what I mean? She walks in, there's guns on the table, you know what I mean? There's dudes everywhere, and we're chilling, and she asks for a line, we give her a line, she goes in the room, and she calls the counselors, and she tells them, hey, this is what's going on, I need help. And she tells me, I'm like, okay, cool. And then we got honest. We got honest with everybody, because they didn't know what we were up to. They had suspicions, but we got honest. And from then on out, it was me hiding my drug addiction, my drinking from her. You know, she wanted to be sober, and I didn't. So, yeah.
Yeah, that hiding thing is extremely common for us
Yeah.
addicts. Yeah, it never really pans out well, at least in my circumstances. All right, man. So you were still able to sustain your apartment
Yeah.
and your employment.
Yeah, I was bouncing from job to job, but I always had a stable check coming in.
So at this point, you're 18 still.
19.
You're 19 at this point.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening? You're obviously, we're not doing this interview in your apartment, so I'm assuming you don't have your apartment anymore.
No, around this time is the first time I smoked meth.
Okay, so then meth came into the
Yeah.
picture. 19 years old.
Yeah, I was working at a hotel. I was security, not hanging out with people. You know what I mean? And she didn't know I was using at this time. You know, it would snow outside a little bit, and I'd be like, "Hey, I gotta sleep at the hotel. I can't drive home." Are you sure? Like, can you just come home? No, I can't. Sorry. You know what I mean? And I started smoking meth for the first time, and I was hiding that as well from her. And eventually, we got in a big fight. The police were involved, and I got my apartment taken away because of police presence that was there. There was a big thing that happened.
Did they evict you?
Yes.
They evicted you. So
Yes.
ballpark, from the time you started doing meth for the first time until the time you got evicted, how long were you able to hide and keep that incognito, and I guess you could say maintain?
3 weeks probably.
3 weeks. 3 weeks.
Yeah, I had that apartment a total of like 3 months.
Okay, so this was a short time.
Yeah, it was.
Hey man, I mean,
Yeah.
just gotta give you credit.
Yeah.
Gotta give some credit. Okay, so 3 weeks meth,
Yeah.
and then the thing happened with your girlfriend. I'm assuming you guys kind of parted ways after that. Maybe?
Yeah. I mean, I found it out that when I was in jail at one point, because I was in and out of jail during this time period as well. She cheated on me with my brother, and my blood brother, and he lived right up the street. And I found this out, and the drugs came heavier. I got out of jail. I knew I was getting evicted. I had like 7 days or 3 or something like that. And I started just doing drugs like crazy. I was punching holes all over the wall, spray painting the walls in the apartment. She wasn't there anymore, obviously. And I tried to kill myself one night with pills and alcohol, Xanax. And I woke up. And it was a very dark time in my life, you know what I mean? I was doing meth as well. And one day I decided to check in to go back to the rehab out in Atlanta. So I left everything, my clothes, my TV, my couches, my bed, my Xbox.
And went back to
everything.
Atlanta.
Went back to Atlanta. Just left everything.
Wow.
You know. Yeah.
Interesting. So you went back to Atlanta, and you guys were pretty much toast.
Yeah.
You guys were pretty much done for when you went back to Atlanta. So Atlanta, it's something in Atlanta being the treatment center probably made you feel like you could get clean and get your head right.
Yes.
Kind of a safe haven almost.
Yeah.
That's a plus.
And I was in the out there. It was step 1, so it was a sober living, but a part of the program.
Oh, so you weren't gonna do the inpatient.
You can only do that once.
Sober living out in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm assuming from what you said, man, it sounded like the girlfriend thing was pretty traumatic. So I'm assuming you were in love with her.
Oh yeah, deeply.
You were deeply in love with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, being a fellow addict, people have told me, they're like, yeah, You must not love that person that much if you quit doing drugs, but unfortunately, that's not the way it is. That's not how addiction works, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can completely relate to you. So that sounded pretty traumatic, dude. I'm sorry to hear that. So you went back to Atlanta, and from the sounds of the first time you went out there, it worked out for you pretty well. How did it go this time?
It was good for about 2 months, 2.5 months, and then I started using again.
Did they actually? Was this an actual sober house? Unlike Denver, because Denver
Not really.
was the unsober.
All I had to do was be home at a certain time. No drug test, nothing.
No drug test.
No.
So this is the second sober living home you lived at with no drug test.
Yeah, and
or did they make you blow up breathalyzers at all when you got home?
If they had suspicion, but
Wow. So how? Okay, sorry, I got a little sidetracked. So how did that go? I'm sorry.
I ended up relapsing, getting kicked out.
After how long, roughly?
About 2.5 months, getting kicked out. I was messing with the wrong people out there as well. Started getting into a lot of fucked up things out there as well. And then I started talking to my ex again. I was talking to her, told me to come back to Colorado, so I did.
Oh man.
Yeah. I forgave her.
Yeah, I mean,
I was like, all right, cool.
After the brother thing.
Yeah.
Which probably, that probably added, probably just as much as her W than I kind of spaced on the brother thing. That was probably just as traumatic as her leaving you.
Yeah.
It would have been for me. Yeah. Okay. So you moved back in Atlanta. So a big part of this is like when you got back to Atlanta, you started hanging out with people. So you're aware of that, which is good. Were you still listening to trap music type? Trap. Same kind of.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter where I went, where I go. It's just I will find my crowd of people.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I will start doing my thing.
Especially if that's, you think where you were from and who you were hanging out with prior, probably,
Yeah.
You know how to interact with
Most
people.
definitely. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm not, I could, it's everywhere I go, I always end up finding my people. I always ended up going to jail. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll touch more on that in another series that I plan on doing. Hopefully I can get you to join. But so it's easy for you to fit in with a certain crowd of people. Would you say it's not easy for you to fit in with let's say in society's eyes, like the non-hood people, for lack of better terms, or
Yeah.
Okay, so it's harder for you to blend in there.
Yeah, I've always struggled with that. That's pretty much the main reasons why I struggle in these programs that I have been talking about is because they're just, they're privileged, snotty kids, or you know what I mean.
Right.
You know what I mean, and it's just like I don't relate to them. They're weird to me. I don't like them, and I'm weird to them.
Yeah. Did you feel that? Did you feel that while you were at the sober house in Atlanta?
Yes.
So people in that sober living house were so quote unquote preppy or entitled. That's the word I like to use. Entitled.
Yeah. And they were cool, but it's just like I couldn't talk to them and relate to them in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because they just had a different way of thinking than
Right.
I did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Culture plays huge in everything, man, and we're gonna get more into that later. But awesome, man. So you're back home again, Colorado, Denver.
Yeah.
With your girlfriend.
Yep.
And you got kicked out of sober living house for using.
Yes.
So you were already in the midst of addiction when you moved back to Colorado.
Yeah.
Methamphetamine?
No.
Alcohol.
No, alcohol. That's it.
Alcohol is your main.
Alcohol is my main thing. Yeah. I came back to Colorado and I was in sober living.
You moved back in sober living.
Yes.
Was it a sober?
No.
So you've lived in three. At this point, you've lived in 3 sober living homes.
These are like sober livings attached to the program, so they don't breathalyze people. They don't drug test people. You know what I mean? It's just different.
So with all due respect to any of these programs or anything, and we'll get more into this later. I'm getting kind of sidetracked. When it comes to sober living house, staying sober is definitely the key.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get more into that later. So you're back in sober living in Denver.
Yeah.
All right. So you sobered up. Did you go detox or anything at that point? Or were you able to kick it?
No. They didn't know I was using. and I continued to use, and I eventually just left.
Oh. Okay.
And I told him on my way out the door, you know, hey, by the way, this isn't working out. Thank you though.
Yeah. All's well that ends well.
Yeah, because when I was there, I was sleeping on the couch. So you know what I mean. I was on the couch at the sober living, and then there was another guy on the couch. There's 3 of us in the living room on the couches living in the sober living. And
how many rooms were in there?
I don't even know. There was probably about 10 guys in that house.
So wow, interesting.
Yeah. After that, I was homeless on the streets for a little bit. You know what I mean?
And are we talking, like we kind of touched on earlier, are we talking tent city type?
At this point, yeah. At
So
this
now
point, I'm walking around smoking meth.
And this is
Tent City, Civic Center.
This is kind of like society's picture of streets.
Yeah.
Was this the first time for that picture for you, kind of?
Yeah,
Like
I was around it, you know,
right,
before, but I was never like a part of it.
You didn't live in it.
Yeah, I'd come through, you know, I'd sell whatever,
right.
you know, maybe drink a little bit, but these dudes aren't. I don't want to be like that. These dudes ain't shit.
Now you're there.
Now I'm there, and I'm one of them.
So what, man, yeah. So this is a big one. So what was it like, man? What did you see? What was the day like for you? I mean, I'm sure it varied extremely from day to day, but. I mean, did you have your own tent at one point? Or?
No. This was August and September. I remember it was August and September. I was working for a moving company, and I would either sleep outside the moving company, over off Broadway in Denver, South Denver, and I was all over. And then eventually I ended up moving into my boy's house apartment. Over by 9 Mile, over by there, and that place was pretty much a trap house, man. And he didn't know I was doing blues. I was smoking blues.
Oh man, so fentanyl was introduced at this point.
Yeah.
You just started doing fentanyl.
As soon as I got back.
As soon as you got back to Denver.
So
when you left, just out of curiosity, when you left Denver, was the fentanyl pandemic? Has it hit Denver yet?
No.
So when you got back home, you're like, okay, now everyone's smoking these quote-unquote blues.
It was everywhere.
Right.
And one of your homies doing it, it's like, what the hell? And one of the dudes I was living on the couch at that sober living when I came back from Atlanta was doing it. And I remember we were drinking one time, we were in this parking lot. I'm like, hey, are you doing that shit? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, fucking stop doing that, throw it away. We're all drunk. I'm like, that's not good, blah, blah, blah. He's like, you want to hit? He's like, shut the fuck up. You want to hit it or not? I said, yeah. And I hit it.
Shit changes from there, huh?
And yeah, from there on out, I loved them. You know what I mean? Not a whole lot, but I was like, this is nice.
Yeah.
You know, but I like meth more. Like, this is nice. You know what I mean? Don't do this. You know what I mean? I don't mind it. So I was hitting blues. You know what I mean?
Yeah, alcohol, like you said, is kind of your main thing. Well, I mean, from what I know and from what I've experienced, you know, fentanyl is also kind of a downer, depressant, so to say. So yeah, I can imagine. So at that point you're living at your boys. You were on the street. How long were you on the street for? Like not all that long.
Not that long.
Because you were working. At least you were able to hold a job.
Yeah, I've always been able. When I'm on the streets or whatever situation I'm in, I always have a stable income. I'm either, you know, selling dope, and I'm not a trap star or nothing like that. I have a little bag of blues,
sure,
clear, and I'm pushing that enough to sustain my high. That's it. I wasn't making no profit. I was just making enough money to sustain my high and keep it pushing.
Absolutely, man.
You know what I mean? I always had dope.
Yeah, those are pretty serious addictions. At this point, would you say you've experienced physical addiction?
Yes.
Have you been at detox any time at this point?
No.
Okay.
No, I always did it on my own, and I've had severe withdrawals from alcohol.
So at this point, you were already well aware of what that looks like.
At this point, I'm well aware that I'm probably gonna die this way.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't care, man. I didn't care at all. I knew that this was my life. You know what I mean? Since a young age, I always knew I was gonna be nothing. I'm gonna end up in prison, or I'm gonna end up dead. I never had high hopes for myself because when I was growing up, you know, not to backtrack or anything, but I had a learning disability.
Okay.
And I was always casted out from the other kids and whatnot. I was bullied in the first place, but the learning disability didn't help. So I always knew that I'm too dumb to do anything good, so might as well just fuck shit up. You know what I mean? So at this, you know, so I basically was making, I manifested it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I moved into my ex-girlfriend's apartment. And
the same one.
Yeah. We got back together. I went to jail. When I got out of jail, I was like, I want to be clean. Cause she was pregnant. Yeah. Yeah. With my kid.
Okay.
So, cause I was seeing her right when I got back and whatnot. You know, I just wasn't living with her. So I went to jail and I moved in with her. I was clean and I was sober. I was ready to change my life. Calling my mom, hey mom, I'm clean. I'm doing good. I have a kid on the way. You know what I mean? Talking to my stepdad. What should I do? Blah, 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 blah. I got a kid on the way. Everything's changing. I have a kid on the way. I'm working hard. I'm saving up money. I'm clean. She's working hard because soon she can't work. You know what I mean? And a few months into it, we had a miscarriage. Yeah. And that pretty much broke me. And I lost all hope in changing, getting sober, all hope in anything, you know? So after the surgery, I drove her home. You know, I laid her down in bed. She was sleeping, and I went to the liquor store.
After being sober for a bit.
Yeah, and I started drinking.
Wow, that's a bummer, man. I'm sorry to hear about that.
Thank you.
So you picked the bottle back up, and what did that end up leading to?
Meth.
Yeah.
Meth, and what I would do is she'd catch me drunk and she'd kick me out right away, cause she was still sober. She'd kick me out right away. You can't be here when you're drunk. I'd go on the streets, you know, back to a civic center where the camp was, smoking dope. Eventually she'd let me come back, and this was an on and off thing. You know, I'd be homeless for weeks or months at a time. I'd go back for a little bit, go back to the streets, back and forth. There was times where I was getting kicked out on purpose. I started a fight with her on purpose.
So you can go out.
So I can get kicked out and go do drugs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Dang, man. So you were kind of on and off there. How long was that period?
This was about...
Give or take.
I don't even know. At this time, this is about a year.
About a year.
I'd say, yeah.
So at this point, what are you looking like? Maybe 20?
19 and 20.
19 to 20.
Yeah.
So up from 19 to 20, you're kind of on and off on the streets.
Yeah.
So it sounded like you kind of wanted to stay sober, but you were kind of unsure about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just hard for me, man. I mean, you know, I gained her trust back, and then I steal her car.
Yeah.
And go do drugs all day. Bring it back all late, and I'm all, you know, fucked up on drugs. You know what I mean? Getting in high-speed chases with her car. You know what I mean? She'd kick me out because she'd find a gun in my bag or whatnot. You know what I mean? I wasn't a good boyfriend.
Sure.
You know, and I wanted to get sober. I wanted to, but I didn't want to go get help, and you know, it was just hard for me.
Did the thought of getting help, because like you kind of mentioned, the physical addiction part was already at play.
Yeah.
So was the thought of getting help scary?
Yes.
What, the withdrawal aspect?
The withdrawal aspect for sure, and just the lifestyle.
And the lifestyle. So
the lifestyle I was living was addictive, you know, kicking in fucking doors, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Taking what I want, drugs, money, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Just kind of living reckless.
Yeah, reckless as hell, man. I was running amok, and I didn't care.
Yeah, you didn't have too much of a concern for your own life.
And I had nothing to lose, you know.
Right, and like we talked about, you know, just about every time that's led up, there's been some trauma involved. And you know, we're all human, and that's common, man. You know, so give yourself a little grace. All right, so I'm assuming shit hit the fan. I'm assuming shit hit the fan with her in that situation.
Yeah. She kicked me out, and I was on the streets for a while, and eventually, you know, I went to my grandma's house. My grandma took me off the streets, and
after being on the streets for some time.
Yeah. My grandma took me off the streets, and I got clean at her house from just drinking. Drinking. I was drinking a lot, man.
You got clean off the other drugs by using alcohol?
Yes, off of meth and fentanyl.
Sure.
I got clean by just drinking. A ton. A lot.
self-medicating in a sense.
Yeah.
So you're self-medicating, and that you were feeling like the drinking was maybe subsiding or whatever you want to say. Some of those withdrawals.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the drinking. So you did get it. You stopped smoking meth. You stopped doing fentanyl. And you moved to your grandma's house. This way, and I'm assuming things with your girlfriend at that time were done.
No, we were still talking.
You guys were still talking.
Yeah.
When you got clean at your grandma's.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we were still talking. I would go over and hang out with her and whatnot. She wanted me to move back really bad. We were still together.
Okay.
You know, we just weren't living together because I couldn't get sober over there. I don't know what was going on with me, but we weren't living together at the time, and eventually I moved out of my grandma's house and I moved into this bando, this trap house in Montbello, and I started using again and whatnot. And I'm still talking to her, we're still together, and I found out that she's cheating on me with the neighbor. Yeah. I don't know how long it was going on for. But, yeah, so that's going on. And I quit talking to her, block her. And I'm running amok again, you know what I mean? Playing with guns. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Smoking a lot of meth, booze. Living crazy.
So she cheated on you again.
Again, yeah.
Again, and that wasn't the first time around, obviously. And yeah, it kind of, with all due respect, it kind of led you back.
Yeah.
Because it's trauma. Because you loved her. It was traumatizing.
Yeah.
It was her.
Yeah. And it was, I was gonna end up using anyway. You know what I mean? I kind of just use it as an excuse, man. And I think, somewhat deep down, that's why I kept going back to her, was because maybe it's because I would have a solid excuse to use, because she always ended up doing me dirty somehow. You know what I mean? And I'm not, obviously, from what I've been saying, I was not a perfect boyfriend. I was fucked off completely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't just her, but it was also like I kept going back because I knew that she was going to do me dirty somehow, so I could, use, maybe, I don't know.
Well, yeah, definitely. That's, I commend you for even thinking of considering that, because, I don't think there'd be enough paper in the world to write a book on exactly why everybody does the things they do, you know what I mean? But it's good to take everything into consideration. I've definitely done that a lot in my life. So, at what point did maybe not at what point? So what happened? What happened after that? We'll say that.
That happened. I was just wilding out, really. And then I ended up getting in contact with some of the guys at the program I was in. And they're like, hey, come meet me. And at this time, I've been sober, I've been up, awake, haven't slept for days and days and days. Like, hey, come meet me. I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm high, really high, And I go there, I take the bus over to them, and I go there and I'm out of it. I'm in psychosis. I go to the bathroom and I smoke more and it triggers it, and it's ridiculous. And I go back to my house that I was staying at and find my way to Kansas City. Yeah. I wake up, I come to in a hotel room in Kansas City, and then I go to detox out there. And this is the first detox I've been to.
Mm.
And what was supposed to happen was that I go to treatment out in St. Louis after the detox. So I was on a scholarship at the detox. I didn't have to pay. You know what I mean? And from there, I decided to come to Harvest Farm in Colorado, Wellington. So I tell him, hey, I'm not going to go to St. Louis after all. I'm sorry, I'm going to go to this place. And at middle of the night, no, not middle of the night, but late, around 11 o'clock, they kicked me out.
Of detox.
Because I was no longer going to the program that I was supposed to go to. Because I was doing a scholarship.
Right.
Once I was like, hey, I'm not doing what you guys want me to do, I'm going to go do this, they kicked me out. Yeah. So,
In Kansas City.
in Kansas City,
Kansas City, Missouri?
in December, I think. Yeah. So, I found trouble out there
In Kansas City.
in Kansas City.
Right after leaving?
Right after.
Were you still withdrawing?
No. I was good at this point. Find trouble out there. Get back on I get on a Greyhound. Come back to Colorado, to Denver.
Oh, with Harvest Farm in mind.
Yeah, with Harvest Farm in mind. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna change. I get back to Colorado instantly. I'm getting high.
You were getting high in Kansas City too, right?
Yes. Yes.
Were you getting high on fentanyl and meth?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was drinking.
And drinking. Drinking seems like a pretty constant.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's once I drink, I want some meth.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's cold, so you gotta smoke to stay warm sometimes. You know what I mean? So I'm back in Denver, and I'm using, and I end up getting into this sober living, called Authentic Recovery, in Denver. And this was the first house that was part of the program, and I just keep using. I keep using at this time.
At the sober living house.
Yeah.
For what is this, the third or fourth time? One of the two. I think it's the third.
Third. This is the fourth.
So no UAs.
UAs.
Oh, they actually had
UAs
UAs.
and breathalyzers.
So this one was a sober
This is a
living
legit
house.
sober living. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm 20 at the time. I don't have a fake ID, nothing, and I'm in Capitol Hill, and I can't steal from this King Soopers down the street, nothing like that, because I live right down the street from it. I gotta go to King Soopers every other day for food or whatnot. So I'm buying mouthwash, and I'm drinking tons of mouthwash, tons. And I'm also, I'm smoking meth and I'm smoking blues at this sober living. And one day the CEO, who's a good friend of mine, Kelly, walks in the room that I'm in, and I'm laying there in bed, and I'm hungover, I'm dope sick. He starts talking to me. He instantly knew. He's an addict as well. He instantly knew. I told him, yeah, I've been getting high, drunk, whatever. And he's all, okay, stop. But you're good. And it's me at the sober living and this one other older guy named Mike. And Mike was also using. Yeah. Because the sober living just got started, so it's just us two. And I'm like, okay, it's time to get my shit together. I'm gonna find it. I wasn't working or nothing. I need to find a job and I need to get my shit together. Right? I'm sober for like a few days. Instantly. Back to drinking mouthwash, smoking blues, smoking this and that.
That quick.
That quick. And same thing happened again. Kelly's, hey, what's going on with you? Blah, blah, blah. I tell him, because me and him are close. He said, you do that shit again, I'm kicking you out. But right now we need you at this house. You know what I mean? Because I was one of the only dudes there. We need you here. Get your shit together because this house is going to fill up soon. And if you're using while the house is full, I have to kick you out, dude.
Yeah.
So I finally get my shit together, and I walk to the temp agency. I wake up at 3 in the morning every day, and I walk an hour to this temp agency on Colfax and High every morning. The temp agency opens at 4. I'm in there waiting for work every single day because I didn't have a job yet. And I'm clean. I'm going to an AA meeting up the street called York Street. And I'm doing good, man. I got a sponsor named Ben. I get some sober friends. We go out and get some food sometimes. You know what I'm saying? It was cool. It was a good time. And at this time, I had a sponsor, but I wasn't really using him.
You weren't keeping in contact or nothing?
I was keeping in contact with them. I was meeting him every weekend at meetings and whatnot. or even twice a week, but I wasn't doing the steps, you know. And like before, when I was relapsing and stuff like that, and he picked me up and everything, I'd be throwing up, I'd be dope sick. You know, my hands would be all bloody, my face is all bloody because I was going to fight or something. He's like, dude, when will you be ready? I'm like, I'm ready. But I wasn't ready. And I'm not using my sponsor. I'm not doing the step work. I'm not praying. I'm not doing anything. I'm just white knuckling it, thinking that I was going to get sober. And eventually I did get sober. I was sober for about 2 months. And I'm working at Denver Rescue Mission in downtown Denver, and I start using again. And I get kicked out of the program of the sober living, and I'm back on the streets, and I get a hotel room. And I go through psychosis, you know what I mean? And it's a bad time.
For those who don't know what psychosis is.
Psychosis is
in your words.
When you smoke enough dope and you're awake for long enough, you start to lose your fucking mind, and you don't know what's real. You think that shit's real. So for example, I've went through psychosis a couple times throughout my life, and I think people are trying to kill me. You know, I'm running around with a gun in a hotel room. I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. You know, psychosis is just something that's not real, but you believe it's real. And it's the scariest thing ever. It's like hell.
So you're losing touch with reality.
Losing touch with reality. And, you know, I ended up going to jail, you know, soon after.
In the midst of being in psychosis.
Yeah.
Sure, that was pretty rough.
All these times, man, I'll be good for a little bit, and then I'll go to jail. And I'm good for a minute, and then I'll go to jail. And that's how it's been for a long time. You know what I mean? I always found myself in jail right after treatment or something like that.
Would you say that comes with the lifestyle?
Yeah, definitely. Everything that I've really been through in my life is, it's just a lifestyle that I chose. At a young age, I didn't really know what I was signing up for.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I was already ankle length deep in it, it was too late.
Yeah.
You know, at this point, I'm neck deep, and I'm about fully gone. You know what I mean? Fully gone. I thought I was fully gone. I thought there's no getting better. You know?
Yeah, man. A lot of people don't come back from that.
Yeah.
A quote from my father was, you know, we're like a walking chemistry set. You know, and it just takes one thing to, you know, to get that chemistry out of balance. And sometimes people don't come back from it.
Yeah.
Still something my dad used to say. All right, man. So, wow, yeah, that's a lot, bro. So, you just touch on the psychosis thing real quick. Do you think any of those times you were in psychosis was that traumatic?
Yeah.
Okay, just out of
Definitely.
curiosity, yeah, because we're gonna do in the future. We're gonna talk more about trauma and stuff. But yeah, I was just curious because I've had a touch of psychosis myself, and it was traumatizing for me to an extent. Awesome, man. All right, so let's keep going here. So what happened after that?
I go to jail.
You're in jail. Yeah, you're doing this kind of back and forth.
Yeah. And this has been going, the in and out of jail and all this stuff has been going on since I was, you know, a teenager. And I'm in psychosis, I end up in jail. And I'm there for a few months, and I ended up getting into an altercation, and I changed pods and everything like that, and I moved pods, and I found myself praying, which was something that I never really did. Found myself praying, and I was in the cell with some of the homies that I knew from the streets, and one of them is Muslim, the other one is Catholic, and they take it serious. So I was talking to them about it, My homie Savage even got me a Bible while I was in there. And usually in jail, I don't do nothing but talk shit, watch movies, fight, you know, whatever. But this time around, I wanted to be different, and we requested Bibles from the chapel. He'd bring us the Bible. You know what I mean? We'd sit there in the cell, read it, and there we had church on I think it was Tuesdays. They had church. They'd have Christian church come, where we just go in the room and talk about God. That's all it was. And then they have Catholic church come, and then like a Buddhist. I didn't go to the Buddhist one, but you know what I mean. I went to the other ones, man. And I was also going to AA while I was in there.
Okay, nice.
And someone was speaking to me a little bit with that, you know, and it was weird. I've never really been super religious at all. You know what I'm saying? If anything, I've had a resentment towards God pretty much my entire life. So I was in there and I'm praying, I'm talking to my homie about it, and I decided that when I get out of here, I'm gonna take it serious. I'm gonna change my life when I get up out of here. And I get out, and I immediately go to the hood and start smoking fucking cocaine, drinking.
The same day?
I got out at night. I went to my mom's house, I slept, and then in the morning I got up and went to the hood. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Kicking it with the homies. Hey, I miss you, bro. Like, it ain't been the same without you. Da, da, da. You know, I feel home again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wasn't smoking meth, I wasn't smoking fentanyl. But I was smoking coke. I was drinking a lot. And I had Harvest Farm in the back of my head. When I was in jail, I found out that my cousin works for the Fort Collins Rescue Mission. He could get me into Harvest Farm.
Nice.
And I'm calling Harvest Farm every day in jail, but they're not picking up, so I'm like, fuck it, I'm not gonna go, whatever. And I get out of jail and I'm doing these drugs, da-da-da. And I remember one morning I wake up and ain't nobody in the apartment. The door's open, wide open, you know what I'm saying? And we're in the hood, right? And, the door's wide open. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? And I sit up, and I don't know where nobody's at, and my head hurts, and I'm just like, a few days I went past just like that. And I'm like, wait, what am I doing? Like, I thought I was gonna change. And this is the first time that I've had a moment of clarity.
Through those 3 days?
For the first time in my life, it felt like.
Alright, cool.
Of where I was like, I was still high, I was still drunk, whatever, because I wake up and I'm still all, fucked up.
Right.
But I'm like, and then there's beers everywhere, I'm opening beers, I'm drinking, I'm like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? And I call my grandma, I'm like, hey, I just got out of jail, can you come pick me up? I want to go to Harvest Farm. I go to her house and I have, beers. Got a bottle handle.
At her house or with you?
With me, and I take it to her house.
Yeah.
And nobody even knows I'm out of jail yet, other than the homies that I was with in the Bellows. That's what I went over to Bellows and I was chilling with them. But other than that, nobody knew I was even out of jail. I didn't call nobody, nothing. I was on social media, nothing. And so people still think I'm in jail to this day. I assume, because I haven't gone on my old Instagram or Facebook or nothing. And I'm at my grandma's house, bro, and I'm laying down in this room, and I drink my last beers, and the handle I had, it was in the garage for some reason. I don't remember why I put it down there, but it was in the garage, and I'm in my room, in a room at my grandma's house, and my grandma's like a hoarder, so there's stuff everywhere. You know what I mean? In this room I was in, I'm on a bed, and I have about this much space on the bed, and the bed's full of just clutter, different things, paper, books, objects, different things like piles. You know what I mean?
You'd almost think she'd be the one with the addiction.
Yeah, yeah. And I like to get on the bed. I gotta climb over stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Climb on things just to get to the bed. And I'm laying down and I'm sick. I'm withdrawing. The second worst withdrawals I've ever had in my life. You know? You know, because I've had overdoses before and whatnot. And I'd rather overdose and die than withdraw.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how bad it gets.
Were you withdraw from alcohol?
Yeah.
Because you got
Yeah.
down to your last couple beers.
I had a seizure. Yeah, not this time, but back then, like, I've had seizures.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So
And,
you were already, once you start having seizures, it's
Yeah.
common to,
Yeah.
from what I've been told. Yeah.
And so I'm withdrawing, because I drank my last beer, and I'm withdrawing, and I'm sitting there like, why am I like this? You know, what is going on? You know, and I take a step back and I look at all the people that I've hurt, you know, whether it was on the streets, whether if it was in my family, you know, not physically, but like, you know, like hurting their, you know what I mean, just all kinds of things, you know. And it was all catching up to me, and I felt a way that I've never felt before. You know, the next morning I get up, and I'm drinking in the basement, and I'm still sick. You know, taking shots, and I look at the bottle, and I'm like, you know, I don't want to do this anymore. You know, and I'm crying and shit like that, you know, because I'm like, it's the scariest thing to put down the bottle and move the direction and where you're gonna go, because it's scary, you know what I mean? I don't know what's gonna happen to me. I feel so comfortable using, this is all I know, it feels like. But I know that it's not right and I need to stop. So, and it's my grandma's birthday, you know what I mean, the next day, and I wake up and it's the first day I've had sober, June 15th, my grandma's birthday, and I'm like, I need to go to the farm. So I get a ride up to Harvest Farm, you know what I mean? And I've been here since, and since I've been here at Harvest Farm, I've found God, you know? I've been sober for about almost 4 months.
Congrats.
Thank you. And I'll say this right now, it's a community that's keeping me here. It's a community that's keeping my head up, you know?
Yeah, man, without a doubt, man. Community seems like a big part of what was playing into you staying sober, the sense that you did stay sober. Community is huge for you, man, and in the future, I hope that you continue to find that community, build on that community, and then, you know, like I said, I'm no professional, but eventually it will become easier, because then that is your main community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Awesome, man. Right on, Xander. What? So you're here at Harvest Farm now. What would you say? What would you say to the still suffering addict in active addiction right now?
Get help.
Help.
Get help. Don't give up. Just get help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not easy, and I never will say that it's easy, but it will be worth it.
What would you say the hardest part is?
Staying sober.
Yeah.
Is by far the hardest part. You know,
Yeah.
it's every day. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be sober today. You know what I mean? I could be drunk tomorrow for all I know, but for today I'm sober, and I think that's the hardest thing is, you know, staying consistent with your program, staying consistent with your relationship with a higher power or God, staying consistent with the relationship with your community and your safety net. I think that's the hardest thing, you know. But like I said, it's hard, but it's so fucking worth it.
Absolutely, man. And one last thing, fear. And the reason why I bring this up and talk on it so heavy is I've had that fear. I was an active addiction, and the fear of putting down the bottle, like you said, man, it's the hardest part for me. And what could you? Is there any words of encouragement you could give to someone that might still be going through that fear, or advice?
Just put it down. You know what I mean? It's the scariest thing that one of the scariest things I've ever gone through was putting it down. Like when I put the bottle down in my grandma's garage, it was scary. It was so scary. You know what I mean? And it's scary walking into rehab. It's scary calling around. It's scary having to withdraw. You know what I mean? It's a lot of fear. But you have to be able to overcome that fear. Because if you don't, it will kill you.
Yeah.
You know, this addiction, drug addiction does not discriminate, and it doesn't get better. It's a progressive disease, and it is non-curable. You know, and it's fatal if not treated.
Absolutely. Cool, man. Right on. I'm really looking forward to having you a part of Raw Recovery, dude. It's been great having you on, man. And yeah, I'm looking forward to not only working with you again, but we'll touch base again here in, who knows, man, a month, 2 months. We can even do a short one or something, dude.
Cool.
I plan on doing some podcast style stuff, answering question style stuff. And dude, I'm looking forward to having you, man. Thanks for being the first interview of
No
Raw Recovery, man. This is one take and one take only. We're signing out.